there would have been mutiny on the sideline. I don't care how tired he is or how hurt he is. He's getting 2,000 yards whether he wants it or not. We knew every step of the way how close he was. I mean, we're yelling at the sideline. How many does he need, 40? Okay, we're on it.
Terrell Davis. Was his peak better than Emmitt's career? This should not be a debate. Emmitt Smith is the NFL's all-time leading rusher.
To the 20, touchdown, Emmitt Smith, 75 yards.
He scored more rushing touchdowns than anyone in history. He won 3 Super Bowls. He played hurt, played forever, and broke the record that was supposed to belong to Walter Payton for all time. Terrell Davis? His career was short, brutal, cut in half by injury. On paper, this should be disrespectful, almost offensive. The numbers aren't even close.
Terrell Davis, 9 touchdowns for the season.
But football is not only played on paper. And for 3 years, Terrell Davis did something so violent, so efficient, and so championship-defining that it forces one impossible question. Terrell Davis. Was his peak better than Emmitt's career? Emmitt ran for 18,355 yards.
Emmitt Smith gets his first carry in the second half and gets good yardage. Emmitt Smith swung out of bounds.
Terrell didn't even reach 8,000. Emmitt played 15 seasons. Terrell's body barely gave him 7. Emmitt became the all-time rushing king. Terrell became a Hall of Famer off basically one nuclear explosion of greatness.
Davis with the toss. Inside the 5. Did he get in? He did. Touchdown.
So this should be a joke, right? It should be over before it starts. But then you look at what Terrell Davis did when the games mattered most, and suddenly the question gets very, very uncomfortable. Was Emmitt Smith's career greater? Absolutely. But was Terrell Davis's peak better? That's where the fight begins. The Emmitt Standard. Before Terrell Davis can even enter this argument, he has to climb a mountain named Emmitt Smith.
Emmitt Smith. Touchdown.
And let's be absolutely clear about what that mountain looks like. Emmitt Smith was not just a compiler. He wasn't a guy who piled up stats behind the greatest offensive line in football history and called it a career. He was the Cowboys' heartbeat, their identity, the engine of a dynasty that defined an entire decade.
To me, was the defining moment of Emmitt Smith. The toughness, the competitiveness, the ability to just will himself to give us a chance to win, and we kicked a field goal in that game to give us home field advantage.
Emmitt won 4 NFL rushing titles. He won the league MVP. He won Super Bowl MVP. He powered a franchise to 3 championships in 4 years. He ran for 1,000 yards in 11 consecutive seasons, a record that still stands today. And when you needed 1 yard, when the game was on the line, when the Cowboys needed someone to carry them, it was always Emmitt.
And he's in. What a run. Oh, my.
And then there's the separated shoulder game. January 2nd, 1994, the Meadowlands. Everything on the line. NFC East title, home field, playoff positioning. Emmitt separates his right shoulder in the first half.
Run down by Greg Jackson. And Smith is hurt.
So I would have room and space within the joint because I hurt my AC joint and my clavicle kind of popped up a little bit. And so I'm glad it didn't come through the skin, but it popped up a little bit.
You need to win this game, right?
That's the most important thing. We needed to win this game.
The trainers tape a pair of knee pads together and strap his arm to his side. He can't lift it above his chest, and he plays the rest of the game anyway. Final line: 32 carries, 168 rushing yards, 229 total yards, with 1 functioning arm. In overtime, in a must-win game. That is the Emmitt Standard. That is what Terrell Davis has to beat. If this debate were about resume, about longevity, about record books, the video would end right here. Emmitt wins. It's not close. The record book screams his name. The rings scream his name. The Cowboys' dynasty screams his name. Emmitt Smith's defenders are not arguing from emotion. They are arguing from history, and history is on their side.
Cowboys going a quick count. Emmitt Smith is going to get in the end zone.
But this debate is not about who lasted longer. It is about who burned hotter. The nobody who became Denver's weapon. Terrell Davis did not arrive in the NFL with a spotlight on him. He arrived as an afterthought. He grew up in San Diego, California, one of 8 children, a neighborhood that didn't forgive mistakes, a father whose alcoholism cast a long shadow over the household. Football wasn't just a dream. For Terrell Davis, football was a way out. He played college ball at Long Beach State. He transferred to Georgia, where he was a backup, not a starter, not a prospect, a guy trying to earn practice reps and hope somebody noticed. Nobody noticed.
And from the eye, breaking a tackle, Terrell Davis to the 40.
The 1995 NFL Draft came and went. 195 players were selected before the Denver Broncos finally called Terrell Davis's name in the 6th round. Pick 196. There was no party, no ESPN coverage, just a quiet acknowledgement that a team took a flyer on a kid nobody was sure could play in the NFL. But here's what Denver had in 1995, an aging legend who'd never won a championship. John Elway already had the arm. He already had the fame. He already had the heartbreak. 3 Super Bowl losses. A franchise that had come so close so many times that close had become its own particular kind of cruelty. What Elway didn't have was a running back who could take the violence away from him and absorb it into the ground instead. That was the job Terrell Davis quietly walked into. Nobody planned around him. He was depth. He was depth that became a weapon.
He's going to get it, and he's coming up the middle. He's going to the goal line. Touchdown! Terrell Davis, the rookie!
And then the weapon became a dynasty. Emmitt Smith was the first-round pick, the chosen one, the man the Cowboys built their entire identity around from the moment his name was called.
Under the trade that I just described, Dallas selects Emmitt Smith, running back from Florida.
Terrell Davis was an accident that became undeniable. And in this debate, that difference matters, because one man was expected to be great, and the other had no business being here at all. This is an NFL documentary about the running back nobody wanted, and the 3 years that made him impossible to ignore. The migraine game. The moment the debate turns. January 25th, 1998. Super Bowl 32. Denver versus the defending champion Green Bay Packers. Brett Favre, Reggie White, 11.5-point favorites. The AFC hadn't won a Super Bowl in 13 consecutive years. John Elway was 37 years old and out of time. The whole weight of his career, 3 Super Bowl losses, a franchise built around one man's arm and everyone else's heartbreak, rested on this game. In the second quarter, Terrell Davis began losing his vision. The migraine aura hit, the warning sign migraine sufferers know and dread. His right eye went dark.
Davis to the 6-yard line and a first down as Eugene Robinson, the veteran from Colgate.
He lined up in the wrong position on one play because he could not see the formation. He had to leave the field. Trainers administered a Toradol injection on the sideline while Green Bay scored and took the lead. The narrative everyone expected was writing itself in real time. At halftime, his vision began returning, barely enough. He told his coaches he was going back in, and for the next 30 minutes, half blind and running on will alone, Terrell Davis was the most dangerous player on the field. He scored in the third quarter to take the lead.
Over 7 minutes as Davis scores. Touchdown!
Favre answered. Davis scored again in the fourth to close it. 30 carries, 157 yards, 3 touchdowns. Denver 31, Green Bay 24. The AFC drought? Over. Elway, finally a champion. Davis, Super Bowl MVP. He could not see clearly. He did not know if the vision would hold. He ran 30 times into the greatest defense in football anyway. Emmitt had the separated shoulder game. Terrell had the migraine Super Bowl. One man carried Dallas through pain to secure the path to a championship. The other carried Denver through pain to win the championship itself. That is the line that stops Emmitt fans cold. That is the knife in the debate. And the video has barely started. And if you think the Super Bowl was the ceiling of what Terrell Davis could do in January, the numbers coming up are going to make you reconsider everything you thought you knew about this debate. The peak that broke the NFL. Here is what most people never bother to look up. Not the migraine story, not the draft position, the actual numbers. Because the numbers are where this debate stops being a story and starts being a problem for anyone who wants to dismiss Terrell Davis. Terrell Davis, from 1996 to 1998, was not just great, he was terrifying. In 1995, his rookie season, he rushed for 1,117 yards and 8 touchdowns.
Evans in motion. Up the middle to Terrell Davis. Touchdown, Denver!
Solid, promising. Nobody was writing Hall of Fame speeches yet. In 1996, he rushed for 1,538 yards and 13 touchdowns. Pro Bowl. The league started noticing. In 1997, he rushed for 1,750 yards and 15 touchdowns. In the AFC Championship game against Pittsburgh, he had 26 carries for 139 yards and 1 touchdown.
Toss, right side, Davis. Cuts up, Terrell Davis at the 5. Terrell Davis into the end zone. Touchdown! Yeah!
Denver was going to the Super Bowl, and everybody knew why. And then came 1998. 2,008 rushing yards, 21 touchdowns. NFL MVP.
What a run by Terrell Davis! How many tackles did he break on that baby? 37 yards.
Terrell Davis became only the 4th player in NFL history to rush for 2,000 yards in a single season, joining O.J. Simpson, Barry Sanders, and Eric Dickerson in that conversation. He was the engine of back-to-back Super Bowl championships. The guy picked 196th overall was holding the MVP trophy. His postseason resume is one of the most dominant in the history of the running back position. 204 carries, 1,140 yards, 12 touchdowns in playoff games. He averaged 5.6 yards per carry in the postseason. He showed up when everything was on the line, and he performed at the highest level the game had ever seen at that position. Terrell Davis, was his peak better than Emmitt's career? Look at that question again. Look at those numbers, and tell me with a straight face this is a stupid debate. The argument for Terrell Davis is not built across 15 years. It is built like a bomb, a short fuse, a violent blast.
Little big hole, Davis 5, close to the end zone, touchdown!
And when it went off, it took the entire AFC, the defending champion Packers, and every doubt about Denver with it. Emmitt owned time. Terrell owned the moment. Emmitt Smith's greatness was repetition. Again, again, again. Every carry, every season, every year. Terrell Davis's greatness was compression. Everything at once. MVP, 2,000 yards, back-to-back titles, Super Bowl MVP, playoff dominance. And then, almost before the league could process what it had seen, it was gone. The playoff monster Emmitt fans don't want to talk about. This is the part of the video that Emmitt fans may not enjoy, because the regular season record book belongs to Emmitt Smith. That is not debatable. But we're not talking about the regular season anymore. We're talking about January. Single elimination, when one loss ends your season and your career might end next. When the games become win or go home, who scared defenses more? That is where Terrell Davis's argument becomes strongest. Emmitt Smith was the greatest closer the NFL has ever seen.
Goodbye for the books, he's gone. Emmitt Smith out in front, touchdown Dallas.
In a must-win regular season game, give Emmitt the ball. He'll get you 30 carries and 165 yards with a separated shoulder and still be standing at the end. But Terrell Davis in the postseason was a different category of violence. He didn't beat you by grinding you down. He buried you. By halftime, the game was slipping out of your hands. By the fourth quarter, the earth under your defense had already given way. Emmitt was relentless. Terrell was overwhelming. Emmitt beat you by never going away. Terrell beat you by making you feel the game was already over before you realized it. 12 playoff touchdowns, over 1,100 playoff yards. In the biggest games, on the biggest stages, Terrell Davis was the most dangerous running back alive. Here is the number that ends the abstract argument. In the 1997 AFC Championship game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, a physical, bruising Steelers defense that had 2 weeks to scheme specifically for Terrell Davis, he had 26 carries for 139 yards and 1 touchdown. Pittsburgh knew exactly what was coming. They had 2 weeks to prepare for him. Their entire game plan was built around stopping him, and he still averaged 5.4 yards a carry and walked out of that building with a Super Bowl trip in his pocket. That is not a regular season stat line. That is a statement. If the question is career, Emmitt wins. But if the question is one running back at his absolute hottest in the biggest games with the highest stakes, Terrell Davis makes this debate a lot more uncomfortable than Emmitt fans want to admit. The career stolen. Mid-sentence. The league was just beginning to understand what it was actually dealing with. Defenses were being redesigned around him. Coordinators were losing sleep. And then it stopped.
Hand off Davis, here he goes. 25, 20, cuts to his left, 15, 10, 5, 3, pylon.
1999 preseason. Terrell Davis plants his foot, cuts, and his knee collapses. Torn ACL. He missed almost the entire 1999 season. Denver spiraled. Elway retired. And the Broncos dynasty, the one built around the 6th-round pick nobody wanted, was finished. Davis came back in 2000. He tried, but the knee was never right again. He rushed for 282 yards that season, a ghost of the player who'd scored 21 touchdowns just 2 years earlier. He retired after the 2001 season at 29 years old. He did not fade because defenses figured him out. He did not decline because the league evolved past him. His body broke, violently, permanently, and that was that. Was Terrell Davis already done proving the point? Or were we robbed of the version that could have made this debate impossible to ignore?
Yeah, TD, let's see that salute one more time.
Here's the part that should make every football fan angry. Terrell Davis became eligible for the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2007. He did not get in until 2017, 10 years after he was first eligible.
I stand before you as an example that no matter what we can achieve if we believe deeply enough, never quit, and know God's hand is always on the small of our back.
10 years of voters looking at 2 Super Bowl rings, a league MVP, 2008 rushing yards, and a migraine Super Bowl performance for the ages, and deciding it wasn't quite enough. Too short, not enough seasons. And in one of those selection meetings, an actual Hall of Fame voter used Clinton Portis, a player who never won a championship and never came close to Davis's peak, as an argument against letting Terrell Davis in. Think about that. Clinton Portis, as a reason to keep the 1998 NFL MVP out of Canton. The snub itself is evidence. If what Terrell Davis did wasn't historically significant, if his peak didn't genuinely belong in the conversation with the greatest runners this game has ever seen, there would have been nothing to debate. You don't spend 10 years arguing about a player who doesn't matter. The football establishment spent a decade trying to minimize what he did, and they still couldn't keep him out. The cruelest part of Terrell Davis's career is not that it was short. It is that it was short after he had already shown us something that looked historically dangerous.
15-10, touchdown.
The what if, the career we never got to see. Terrell Davis was 26 years old at the end of the 1998 season. 26. In the prime of his career, at the height of his power, with back-to-back championships already on his resume. The knee that ended everything hadn't torn yet. The clock hadn't run out. Run the numbers. Over his 3 peak seasons, 1996, 1997, 1998, Davis averaged 1,469 rushing yards and 16 touchdowns per year. Project that pace over a full 10-year career, and you are looking at over 14,000 rushing yards. Not a guarantee, not a certainty, but not a fantasy either. That is what a healthy body and a full career looks like for a running back who was, at that moment, the most dominant player at his position on the planet. Emmitt's record stands at 18,355 yards. Untouchable, everyone says. And maybe it still would have been. But the conversation about who could have challenged it, who had the combination of violence, efficiency, and championship pedigree to even enter that territory, has only one honest answer, and his name is Terrell Davis. The record books belong to Emmitt Smith, but somewhere in that 1999 preseason, on a routine cut that tore a knee apart, the debate that could have consumed this sport for a generation ended before it ever really started. The verdict: career versus peak. So here is the honest answer, the one that doesn't take a side just to win the comment section. Emmitt Smith is the mountain. Terrell Davis is the lightning strike. The mountain lasts longer, the lightning strike burns brighter. And depending on what you value, legacy or destruction, your answer changes. If the question is greatness over time, Emmitt Smith wins. It's not close. If the question is who had the more complete career, Emmitt Smith wins by a mile. But if the question is peak, the highest, hottest, most championship-defining version of a running back in a 3-year window, Terrell Davis doesn't just have a case, he has the case. 2 Super Bowl rings, league MVP, 2,000-yard season, 12 postseason touchdowns, a migraine Super Bowl that belongs in the same sentence as the greatest individual performances this sport has ever produced, and a Hall of Fame voters panel that spent 10 years trying to talk themselves out of inducting him and couldn't do it. If that is not a peak that challenges everything, then the word peak has no meaning in professional football. Terrell Davis, was his peak better than Emmitt's career? So what matters more, the career that lasted forever or the peak that felt unstoppable before it was stolen? Drop your answer in the comments, because the question this video is really asking is whether the NFL establishment robbed us of the greatest running back argument this sport could have ever had. And nobody has answered that yet. Emmitt Smith built the mountain. Terrell Davis was the lightning. And for 3 years, the lightning won. Terrell Davis, was his peak better than Emmitt's career? If this video made you feel the weight of what was stolen, if it made you sit with the question of what could have been, then you already know this debate is bigger than a stat line. Subscribe to End Zone Exposed so you never miss the next one. Share this with the Emmitt fan in your life who thinks this debate is already over. And drop your answer in the comments right now, because this channel exists for exactly this argument. The careers that lasted, the peaks that burned, and the stories the record books don't tell. End Zone Exposed is where the truth always scores.